welcome back to the Better Days Reign Addiction Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Daniell. And today I have my good buddy, Chris Holt. He's in the studio, and we're going to do a little Q&A. And today we're going to talk about the role we play in some of the, trauma, some of the events that happen in our lives. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's really hard to look back on your life and something really bad happened to you. And we typically want to blame others. We want to shift that accountability towards someone else so that way we can feel better about it or feel some sort of relief from it. But a lot of times, I have to look back at some of the stuff that I went through and say, what role did I play in some of these events, right? There's a lot of times where I got in trouble with the cops and I legitimately didn't do what they said I did, right? But I had to go back and say, okay, well, I did put myself in that position. Whether it was I didn't protect myself the right way or I was engaging with people that I knew damn well I shouldn't engage with. You know what I mean? So there's some of those behaviors that we don't really look at that create a bad situation, right? It's just like, when we sit down and you have to talk to somebody, have a really hard conversation about whether they're going through like death in the families or and they take it really hard or they were a part of something where something really bad happened and they don't feel it was their fault. So it's coming to the realization that we all have a role to play in life, right? And it's the choices that we make that kind of put us in these situations, and in recovery, like I still when I look at my coaching, right, I always have to look at what role do I play in things. What is my role, and am I living up to that role, right? Especially with politics. Politics is one of those things that always kind of throws me left, right? It makes me very uncomfortable. And it really disturbs my peace, right? But then I have to look at it and say, well, what role do I play in it, right? The role I play in it is like, I try too hard to understand something that I'm not going to understand, and I'm just going to come to that conclusion, right? Like I'm not going to get it, and so that's something I have to keep away from me to protect my peace, you know. So, but yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the role we play in addiction, kind of how we can use those recovery tools in it to where we can, start implementing a different behavior moving forward.
I appreciate you letting me do this with you this morning.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nice that we're finally getting the fall and temperatures finally dropping.
Man, I'm a beach boy, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? I've always lived in the South, and I kind of got, when I was young, Dad used to always have me outside. You know what I'm saying? We didn't. You got up in the morning, you did yard work,
Right.
and then after yard work, it was get out of the house.
But for me, this time of year is my time of year. I'm out in the woods hunting, and I love it. Being able to come back and put food on the table that I harvested, and do my own meat and everything. That to me, I think that's what it's all about. Um, and but we're going to get right into this, and
Bet.
we're coming from somebody that's never been in your shoes. And reason why I bring up the cooler weather is because there's a lot of addicts out there that are on this in this cold weather,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been down this road. And when you look back at your time on addiction, what role did you actually play, personally played, in keeping that cycle going throughout that time?
Bro, I used things that happened in my life, right? Like bad events, like especially the loss of my children, right? When I lost my kids, I used that as an excuse to destroy myself, right? And I went down a very bad road, you know, drugs, gangs, street life, which entails a whole lot, right? That I'm not going to dive into a whole bunch, but
I guess my question would more let using the the weather going in, your personal, your personality, your personally, how did that play to keep you on the street as it get colder on the street?
Man, so when I when I was homeless, man, it was more of a choice. It was kind of a subconscious choice, but at times it was a very conscious choice. Again, going back to when I lost my kids, bro. You get used to that family setting, and having your kids and all the things, right? Family dinners and things like that. So when I lost them, um, mentally, an apartment or a home wasn't a safe space for me, right? And I can even go back to when I was living in hotel rooms. I would go get a hotel room and I paid for it and I'd go sit inside of it for about 20, 30 minutes and I'd look around in the silence, and I'd be like, nope, can't do it. I gotta get out of here. Cause it was just got, it was that reminder, right? It was that reminder of what I lost. You know what I mean? And it felt very uncomfortable for me.
So, did you find yourself blaming others for your circumstances for your addiction at that point?
I don't blame them for the addiction part, right? But I did have a lot of animosity towards some of my family, right? I went through a really rough time, bro. Like I got injured in a real bad accident, so I couldn't walk very well, and I was needing a lot of family support for that, and of course, throw in a heroin addiction on top of that, uh, and then I went to jail, and while I was in jail, my grandmother died, which I was extremely close with. Um, and when she died, the family kind of had to deal with that, right? Because she was like the matriarch of our family. And so, of course, we had my dad and my uncles. They were all at each other's throat about who's getting what and, who's the favorite kid and who's going to kind of step into this leader of the family role. And they kind of just shifted their focus towards that. And I was kind of stuck out on my own.
So, was that kind of your aha moment?
No, no, no. My aha moment came way later, and I had a few. Like I don't even want to just sit there and say I had one aha moment. I mean I did have one very powerful moment last year,
Right.
right? But I had a few. There were some moments there where like I thought about sobriety. I thought about my kids, but my health got real bad. So and I legitimately thought I was gonna die. I looked like I was gonna die. I'm 6'5", bro, and I dropped down to 142 pounds. And I was sick. I couldn't walk very well. I couldn't really do anything. I wasn't functional at that point, and I thought I was going to die. And so when I stepped into sobriety, my goal was to get sober long enough to say goodbye to my kids. I didn't think it. I really didn't think I was going to make it. So that was my initial aha. Right, was to be able to say goodbye in peace, and I knew the only way I was going to do that was being sober.
So, so owning your own story, what does that mean to you today?
Man, owning my own story. I've discovered in recovery, going to meetings and being a coach, that there's a there's a ton of power in testimony. Right? It's unexplainable. Right? And when you kind of find out that you're not alone in it, that other people go through it too. It's groundbreaking because in addiction, that's predominantly where you're at. You're in a space. There's people around you, but you don't really recognize it. You know what I'm saying? Like even the family and the support and the things around you, you're oblivious to it because you're just trapped in your own mind. So for me, it was a very lonely thing. So when you step into recovery and you start hearing other people's stories and stuff like that, it creates a safe space. You know what I mean? To where it's like, okay, there's other people like me that go through the same stuff and they're making it.
So, when you actually took ownership of, did that also help you take responsibility for your actions, impact your relationships with others during your recovery?
Oh, big time, bro. Big time. You know, I will sit there and tell you recovery saved my life, and I apply recovery concepts to everything. Right. I look at everything as recovery, whether it's in drug addiction or job wise, relationships, school. You know, everything to me has a you know a recovery setting to it for me. You know, because it's a new life. I'm trying everything for the first time. You know, I was in heroin addiction for 25 years, and I didn't step outside that too much. Right, you just get comfortable with it. And it's the same way with homelessness. You just kind of get comfortable with it.
Stay comfortable, but everybody has their own comfort level. Was it more painful, freeing, or both?
Man, for me, like I just learned to live with the pain. Physically, emotionally, mentally. You know what I'm saying? Like pain was a when you get comfortable with pain, you don't seek help.
So when you so when you accepted your accountability, pain.
Yeah, I still feel pain today. You know, there's still a lot of things I still feel pain about, you know. Again, especially that relationship with my kids. Uh but it's kind of what I chose to do with that pain, right? Instead of embracing it and accepting it and just kind of ignoring it, right? I took it and I used it as I turned my pain into purpose, right? I went into recovery coaching. And for me, that was probably the best thing I've ever done, right? Because it took 25 years of failure, 25 years of drug addiction, absolutely nothing to be proud of. And you flip the script on it. And now I live a life where I'm grateful for the addiction. I'm grateful for the hardships. You know, not necessarily what happened, but it's what I chose to do with it, right? Which is I take my experiences, I take all that pain, and I use it to help other people.
I just think 25 years of that, if you could have turned that into a retirement. you know, it,
Yeah, you sit here and you try to, and I think we all kind of do this, right? Where we all try to like predict God's plan,
right.
and we all like, I mean, in addiction, you're just like, either God's on the shelf or you're severely mad at God, or other people, you know what I'm saying? But then when you see how it unfolds in the end, like, or kind of how I've seen how it unfolded for me, like I can look back on it, I'm like, man, God knew what He was doing the whole time.
My granddaddy, he told me a long time ago, if you ever want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
Bro, and God got a sense of humor, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can look back and it's kind of like the progressive nature of addiction and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I can look back on my life and say, God tried to sit me down nicely, gently, a whole lot of times.
Before
And
you
I
grabbed
didn't
that baseball bat.
and I didn't listen, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So then it's like, okay, well, now I got to be and man, I'll tell you right now, like God had to strip me butt naked in the street for everyone to see before I came to that realization that, He's trying to teach me something. He's trying to show me something, right? And of course the lessons get a little harder, but then you look back on it after you get through it and you're like, man, it was really all a blessing.
Right. And you look and you also look back and you're like, man, he was trying to help me back then and I didn't listen.
Yeah,
He
you
tried to
just
help me here, I didn't listen. And he finally just, like you said, stripped you down butt naked, hit you with that baseball bat,
yeah.
and said,
Gave
I
you
told you.
Yeah, gave you a good whooping, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I people take me now because I've shifted my mindset. I used to be a very angry person, bro, and very violent person. And today I'm, very humble. I'm full of love and respect for everybody. And people get this image of me that I'm some sort of pacifist now, And I always tell people, I'm like, bro, that's about the farthest from the truth you could get, because yes, I do love people, and yes, I do respect everybody, and I've learned to forgive through a lot of practice. But bro, I'm a firm believer, man. Every now and then, every now and then you need a good ass whooping.
I mean, and learning from our past, you know, how can reflecting on who we were in addiction help you recognize the growth in who we're becoming.
Repeat that.
Okay. No, man, how did
it's
yeah, you got me on that one.
all good.
Because we kind of got off script here,
It's all
which
good.
is great. Um,
It happens.
but so reflecting back on our past, okay, on who we were in addiction, help us in recognizing growth in who we're becoming.
Bro, I was a whole piece of shit in addiction. I mean, I was gonna keep it 1,000. You know, man, I recognize how selfish I was. If that was one thing I recognized more than anything, that I couldn't see in my addiction because you're not owning it, right? And when I didn't own my past, I was holding on to that selfish behavior. Everybody else's fault. The world put me in this position, you know, and once you're able to own your story, like you said, own your story, man, you become a very selfless person. And that's what I try to be today. Is I try to be very selfless, and make myself available for others. But I also take time for myself, man. You know what I'm saying? I take time to, sit down with God and really work on my relationship with God. And sometimes that's literally hours of the day,
Oh yeah, it has to.
right? Where TV's turned off, I'm sitting in my chair, I'm doing studies, or you know what I mean, like, and just conversating, right? And you can call me crazy if you want, and
But
you'd
there is
be,
nothing crazy when you talk to God. I'm on the road a lot. I turn off my radio, and God is my passenger. You know,
yeah,
and he and I are having a conversation, and I know people are looking at me, as they pass me, like this guy's crazy. He's talking to somebody because I'm looking over, and I'm actually
yeah,
talking, and because I actually feel the presence, and we're actually having a conversation.
yeah.
And it goes to my past as well because, and I'm going to ask you this question here in a little bit, you know, about guilt and responsibility of our past, right? Do you ever feel the guilt of your past, or do you accept the responsibility of your past um, in your recovery?
Man, it's shifting that mindset, right? Um, as a as an addict, right, you wear your guilt, right? And as a person in recovery, I enjoy the responsibility, right? As a coach, I need that responsibility. It's my accountability, right? I go into treatment facilities. I go, do some speaking engagements or community events, and people see my face, right? They hear my story, and they see what I'm doing, and that creates hope for other people, right? Other people see it, they latch on to it, and they're like, and I think it's just something about, and I don't know if it's just about addiction or if it's in all areas, right? But you know, I've seen from people back in my old neighborhood and people that I engage with today, when I tell them where I came from, and then they see how I am now, it inspires hope for them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Well, if he can do it, I can do it.
And that's what
You know what I'm
growth.
saying? And so that's where that power of testimony comes in because people need to know that like recovery is possible, real recovery, right? You put the work in, you do all the things to make yourself a success. You come from nothing and you get everything at the end of the day. And it's not about deserving it, right? Because today I feel like I don't deserve a lot of the things that I have today. But I keep taking that next right step. You know what I mean? And I usually bounce my ideas off of people a lot, you
That
know,
you
bounce
do.
my ideas and I look for that support, and I look for outside opinion, you
But
know,
you're not actually looking for affirmation right now either.
not
You're
necessarily affirmation. It's,
you're actually just wanting to make sure you're on the right path right now
yeah.
and doing the right things.
And a lot of that entails, man, putting the right people in place. You know what I mean? Like, I
You have a good self awareness today that I believe is preventing a relapse and preventing negative patterns from happening. You've been with us since January here at the studio, and you were very self conscious when you first came here. now
Oh yeah.
today
Oh
you've
yeah.
opened up a lot and you've surrounded yourself with a lot better people, I believe. And your growth, let's talk about your growth now, right?
Okay.
You know, how do you feel your growth is in your forgiveness in others right now?
Forgiveness is key, bro. Forgiveness is key, whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I had to learn some things about recovery, right? So in 12 steps, we talk about the making amends to the people that we've hurt. And you basically you just, you know, write a list down of people that you've hurt, right? And you go and you try to make it right. Unless it's to cause harm to you or other people. Well, I had to sit down, bro, and really look at this because I did some really bad things to some people. You know what I'm saying? In my addiction. And I'm not about to go back there and try to apologize to them people. Because I know damn well, like, they'd rather shoot me in the face than me go, you know what I mean? Like,
And not everybody's going to forgive.
and not everybody's, and that's what I had to learn, right? Is that forgiveness isn't about other people. Yes, is it good to right your wrongs? Absolutely. But true forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you, right? And I had to learn that, right? And you have to step into this realm of what's good for me. And when I started practicing forgiveness and I really learned the essence of it, it freed me from the burden of a lot of shit. I wasn't super bitter anymore, you know, where I was holding on to a lot of bitterness towards family members, towards, you know, the streets, towards everyone.
And what I'm hearing you say there is you took control
It frees you, bro.
from your addiction and turned it straight into recovery.
Yeah, it frees you, bro. And that's like, to me, if you're going to build a relationship with God, that's where you should start. That's exactly where you should start, is learning how to forgive others, because it's so hard. It is. And I'm not saying it's easy by any means, right? But when you don't practice forgiveness, you become a bitter, hateful, just mean person, right? Selfishness, all those things set in without the ability to forgive people. And so for me, forgiveness, it freed my soul. And it allowed me to focus on my growth instead of dwelling in the trash of my past. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
powerful, man.
It was liberating for me. And you know, it's hard to do. You know what I mean? There's still some things, like I said, that I I don't necessarily dwell in, but when it does pop its ugly head up, I get a chip on my shoulder about it. You know what I mean? And then, but like my wife, she can see it instantly.
Oh
Like
yeah.
yesterday, I went and picked her up from work, and I was stewing on some dumbness that had nothing to do with me, had absolutely nothing to do with me. I just had an opinion about it, and I was being judgmental when I knew I shouldn't have been. But I pulled up, and when I pull up to her work, I always got the radio going. And yesterday, I pulled up about 15 minutes early. She saw me pull up. She said, "I'll be out in about 15 minutes." And she came up to the car, and the radio was off. And I was sitting in the car. She goes, "Uh oh, what are you in your head about? What are you doing?" Like, she knew it right off the bat that I was stewing in something that I had no business stewing in. And she was right.
The wives know, dude.
She was right.
Yep. So let's go ahead and sum this up, and I want you to sum it up with a message you'd want others to hear about turning personal responsibility into empowerment.
Man, it's a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift where instead of using everything you've gone through to destroy yourself, right? To bring you down, to create a whole bunch of doubt and misdirection, right? Use those things as motivation. And I always try to tell people, man, when they're going through something really, really hard, let that be your motivation to do better, right? Instead of break yourself down. And what does that involve? That involves doing a lot of things you don't want to do. It's always harder to do the right thing than it is to do the wrong thing, right? It's real easy to go left, but it's real hard to go right, but it's necessary, right? It's necessary for growth. You have to get uncomfortable at times, a lot of times, and you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith and not know where you're going to land, right? Um, we always kind of, and I think in society we're kind of shifted this way where we are very consequence focused. Just, and I'm not saying consequences don't happen, but like for most of us, we're grown ass adults. You know what I mean? We know the consequences. Quit bombarding me with consequences all the time. Because if I'm always focused on the consequence, I self manifest that. And I've done that many times to where either I'm not scared of the consequence anymore, and I've gotten that way a whole lot where I'm just, okay, it is what it is. I'm not worried about it. It's not any worse than what I'm living in now, you know? But when you stop focusing on what happens when everything goes bad and start focusing your attention towards what happens when everything starts going good, right? So quit focusing on the consequences, start focusing on the rewards. And that's like college, bro. You're always worried about failing a freaking class, right? But that constant self talk of that negativity of if I fail, can honestly affect your grades, right? Because you're doubting yourself, you're putting negative energy in your world. So, man, start focusing on the good things. What happens if I win? And when I look back at like successful people, that's how they got successful. They're not focused on if I fail. They're focused on if I win. You know what I mean? And you see, it's like a lot of these sports players, a lot of these celebrities, you know, their consequences ain't on the losses. I mean, they're not focused on what happens if I lose. They're like, we're gonna go out there and win. It's a mindset. Go out there and win every day. Make it a win instead of taking losses. Because once you start taking losses, you get accustomed to taking losses, and then it turns into habit. Get accustomed to winning and racking up those wins.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And so for me, that was a huge thing. And it's really hard to do in this society because everything is consequence focused. Everybody. So sometimes I have to separate myself from a lot of that stuff. There's times where if I'm going to meetings, man, and it's just like meeting after meeting after meeting, and it's just all negative. Every time I go in there, I got to back up. I got to take a break, and let me know when the mood in the room shifts, and I'll come back in because I can't make that my focus every day. I can't just be focused on negativity and all the trash, and I have to protect my peace. Because that's vital for my recovery. When you come from a world of chaos, man, that peace is gold. It's better than $1 million.
Well, one last thing.
Go for it.
How can we support Better Days Reign?
Bro, you can always support the mission, man. And I'll be honest with you, the best way to support the mission right now, it doesn't cost you a dime. You know what I'm saying? We have our YouTube channel, and we're up on many different platforms: Spotify, Facebook, iTunes, TikTok. I already said TikTok, Instagram. Well, we're on everything, bro. And the best way to do it, man, is if you could log on to our YouTube channel and just subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? Like and share our content. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't think you need recovery, recovery has a very broad. It carries a very broad understanding, and it drifts into a lot of different forms of life, right? You can use recovery in a work setting. You can use recovery family. We focus real big on personal growth, right? And so you can pretty much drag that into just about anything. It doesn't have to be drug addiction. But we do want to provide a service for suffering people. So if you could like, comment, share, and let's help us extend our reach to those who need it. That's the best way. We have our Printify store, which we sell T-shirts, hats, coffee cups, mugs. I mean, we have a wide variety of items, and I'm gonna start designing some new stuff to put up on there as well. So we'll have we got the hoodies coming back since it's coming up wintertime. So I need to get the hoodies back up on there.
Yeah, those were a good seller last.
I love the hoodies, man. The hoodies were always good, and everybody always asked me about the hoodies. So we will have those back up. That's we use the money from that to help do the podcast here at Warrior Garden Studios, who we were very grateful for. They allow us to come in here and shoot this show, and but we also do community events where we get out in the community, we talk recovery. That enables us to do things like that, take recovery meetings to other treatment facilities. So that's a great way to help us be able to be more of a benefit and service to our community. And other than that, man, you know, just comment, man. We want to be engageful. You know what I'm saying? We want to touch on hot topics. You know what I'm saying? We want to hit the topics that people are struggling with. So if you're interested in coming on the show, you can reach me at Shawn at betterdaysrain.com. Or no, it's Shawn slash betterdaysrain.com. Uh, we also provide one-on-one coaching. We facilitate group coaching. So if you're ever interested in maybe and need some one-on-one help, please reach out. We'd be more than willing to help. And really, man, that's about it, man. Appreciate y'all, man. It's the Better Days Rain Addiction Recovery Podcast, and my name is Shawn Daniell. We're out.